David Hayter, who had provided the English language for Solid Snake and later Big Boss since 1998's release of Metal Gear Solid, has stated he was not chosen to reprise his role in Metal Gear Solid 5. On June 6th, during the annual Konami pre-E3 show, Konami officially confirmed the voice actor for Big Boss, actor Kiefer Sutherland, who will also be doing motion capture work for the game. Kiefer Sutherland was assigned the role after a suggestion to Kojima from Hollywood producer and director Avi Arad. Kojima's reason for replacing Hayter was to have a more subdued performance expressed through subtle facial movements and tone of voice rather than words, and that he needed someone who could genuinely convey both the facial and vocal qualities of a man in his late 40s. There's a Metal Gear-sized conspiracy going on, and we're going to get to the bottom of it. David Hayter knows more than he's letting on. Hayter hinted on Twitter that the Phantom Pain was Metal Gear Solid 5 long before Kojima confirmed it, and he hopes that he doesn't lose his voice at E3. The following questions and information are things to consider about the events that have led up to this debacle. Why would Konami waste the big reveal of Snake's new voice on their pre-E3 preview? Everything about the reveal was really awkward, strange, and vague. You'd think they put more work into it if they really wanted to convince us. Why haven't we heard a sample of him as Snake? And why hasn't Kojima changed Snake's Japanese voice actor? Recently, David Hayter retweeted Bill Murray's quote, "Trust me, you should never trust anybody." David also tweeted, "I think I feel laryngitis coming on," and when somebody tweeted back, "I thought you didn't know what trolling was," he tweeted, "You guys taught me." Recently, David Hayter tweeted, "You can't fault Kiefer, great actor, good man, the game will probably still be excellent, like New Coke." This is currently blowing up with some funny conspiracies thanks to the reference to the New Coke conspiracy. For those of you that don't know, the New Coke conspiracy was in the 1980s when Bill Cosby declared that Coke would change its formula. It was a huge scam to save Coke money. You see, the Coca-Cola Corporation never dreamed that people would like New Coke. What they wanted was to release a substitute Coke product with a noticeably different taste. They would keep this on the market until all the old Coke was sold and people couldn't get it anymore. Eventually, Coke claimed, quite rightly, that people missed old Coke and demanded its return. As a consequence, Coke vowed to release the original Coke as Coke Classic. They never did. What they did do was bring back the original recipe, but with significantly cheaper corn syrup instead of sugar. Everyone would have noticed if they had just made the switch directly. Coke would have been forced to return to the original, more expensive product, but since Coke Classic tasted passably similar to old Coke, people just assumed it was the same. The reason I explained all of that was because Metal Gear Solid fans are reproducing this conspiracy by plugging in Kiefer as New Coke and David Hayter as Coke Classic. The fact that Hayter has changed his Twitter profile pic to that of Kiefer is still a bit strange. Kiefer and Kojima are wearing the same shirts while doing the mocap as they're doing the interviews. Looks a little thrown together. 2 minutes and 20 seconds into the segment, the computer shows the date 5/11/2013, a date I would expect to be present from throwing together something 2 weeks before the pre-E3 mocap. It seems weird that you would show up to do a mocap voice acting or interview in one day, 1 to 2 weeks before your big reveal at E3, especially when the Japanese voice actor was in the booth in December of last year. I don't know why, but I feel like this Calorie Mate commercial is somehow relevant.
Stop the car! Move over. I need to get to Shinjuku. Shinjuku. This way. Shinjuku.
まあまあ、スープタイプでも飲んで美味しいですよ。
Yeah.
リアルタイムバランス栄養食カロリーメイト。
Kojima has a history of fooling us. Metal Gear Solid 2 was about introducing Raiden and fooling us into thinking that he was Snake, especially inside the game. They even made a codename Snake in the beginning. And Metal Gear Solid 3 was the same thing. Who's going to be the main character? Teasing, is it going to be Raiden or is it going to be Snake? And then it turns out to be Big Boss because it's a prequel. And Metal Gear Solid 4, is old Snake and young Snake, or what's going on with that? And now it's Metal Gear Solid 5. Who will voice Snake? Kojima is too much of a cinematic perfectionist to simply replace Hayter with Sutherland, especially considering that usually people are replaced with someone whose services come cheaper, not more costly. I think it's safe to say that Hayter's role as Solid Snake is still very much safe, and this is all a big PR stunt. In Konami's pre-E3 video, Sutherland never referred to his character as Snake in the video. It's very suspicious. Kiefer Sutherland is credited to Ishmael on IMBD.com. He was also originally credited as Ishmael on Wikipedia, which has recently been changed to Snake. IMBD.com is still credited as only Ishmael. We can dig even deeper into Kojima's theming and Moby Dick Studios. We all know how much Kojima loves theming. First, we have a fake company, Moby Dick Studios. Then we have the bandaged character Ishmael, and he refers to Naked Snake as Ahab. For those of you that don't know, let's dive into Moby Dick lore. Moby Dick was written by Herman Melville. French filmmaker Jean-Pierre Melville took that author's name because he was a fan of Melville and Moby Dick. He even made a film adaptation in 1941 about it. Jean-Pierre Melville's second full film after Moby Dick, Les Enfants Terribles, The Terrible Children.
Les Enfants Terribles, The Terrible Children. That's what the project was called.
The character Ishmael in Moby Dick is symbolized as orphans, exiles, or social outcasts. This leads me to believe that he's one of the members of Foxhound like Psycho Mantis and the others, who are also social outcasts and rebel against the United States. The character that would be themed with that is Decoy Octopus. Decoy Octopus was the impersonation expert and mimic of Foxhound during the Shadow Moses incident. Octopus was one of the older squad members of Foxhound under Liquid Snake's command, and the only operative whose primary specialty wasn't in combat. There's very little known about Decoy Octopus. A master of disguise, he would alter his appearance and voice to perfectly match that of his subject. His disguises were so thorough, Octopus would go as far as to take in the blood of the subject he was copying. In his normal appearance, he lacked ears and possessed a flattened nose, which would have made disguising himself easier. Born in Mexico, Decoy Octopus later moved to Hollywood and became a successful actor and sound effects artist. Afterwards, he was recruited by the CIA for his exceptional skills in mimicry, where he was assigned to impersonate government VIPs on top secret missions, and requested that the military give him a full mental deprogramming after missions to avoid becoming mentally confused about his identity. He later left the CIA to join the Foxhound unit. Octopus was fluent in a dozen languages. At some point in his life, he had his hairline, cheekbones, jaw, and nasal bones shaved down, and cut off his ears to make disguising himself easier, and had computerized implants which allowed for him to change his voice. With all of that said, it's possible that this character Ishmael's face is reconstructed to look just like Naked Snake. And as a result of Kiefer Sutherland being credited as the voice of Ishmael, it makes sense that a character that looks like Snake could be voiced by Kiefer Sutherland. In the Konami E3 video, Kiefer is shown doing face acting for Snake, but never in a booth reading lines. It seems like Kiefer specifically avoided being specific by referring to his role as simply the character. This could mean that his role as Snake is simply for motion capturing and ironically providing a voice for Ishmael, who has no face. To add to that, Moby Dick Studios on Facebook, one of the things that they commented was, "The character in the trailer is not who you think he or she is. Open your eyes." Now Ishmael could be Decoy Octopus, since those are the kind of bandages that he would be wearing after a facial reconstruction surgery. Let's for the sake of argument say that Kiefer is playing Snake. Then it would make sense that Kiefer is credited as Snake and Ishmael, since he would be mimicking Snake's voice from the surgery, but it also could be specifically for the stunt. Of course, my theories are all assuming that this bandaged man is real and not Naked Snake's imagination, although I can understand why some people would believe that. Some claim the bandaged man is the Burn Man from Metal Gear Solid Ground Zeroes, and while you can't entirely rule it out, the corners of the bandaged man's face are far less damaged to be an exact match. If we take Kojima at his word, the Phantom Pain section of Metal Gear Solid 5 takes place in 1983-84. In Metal Gear Solid lore, Psycho Mantis is born in Russia in like 1970, so he would be 13 in Metal Gear Solid 5, and the child in the gas mask looks around that age. However, he isn't supposed to adopt this trademark gas mask until later in life when he joins the Foxhound unit, but this could probably be reconned to explain anyway. The demonic visions and explosions and flames are all consistent with Psycho Mantis lore as well. As a child, Psycho Mantis burns down his village after reading his father's thoughts, leaving Mantis with severe burns across his body and especially his face. This is where it gets interesting. A Psycho Mantis toy figure was released in 1998 alongside Metal Gear Solid on the PlayStation 1. You could remove his gas mask to see his face. It looks almost skull-like, hideously burnt with huge chunky stitches on the left side of his mouth. Now look again at the mysterious Burn Man from Metal Gear Solid Ground Zeroes trailer. Notice the huge jagged scar extending from the left side of his mouth? Could it be a coincidence? But it does invite an interesting timeline plot scenario. What if Metal Gear Solid Ground Zeroes trailer that we believed to be set in 1974 is actually set or partially set when Psycho Mantis, the Burn Man, is an adult in like the 1990s. In Ground Zeroes, we see the Burn Man and his team erasing the Zoff or XOF logo from a chopper, and the full Metal Gear Solid 5 trailer says Fox versus Zoff. It's almost like the Burned Man is trying to erase Fox from existence or mirror its meaning, which makes sense since Foxhound is trying to rebel. That's the gist of my thoughts on the leading events. Don't count David Hayter out. It's not over. Not yet.